So welcome back to Zero to Fuel Tycoon, where we're going from zero ISK to becoming a known entity of fuel production within the EVE online universe. And this is the current progress of the company since last week. So you can see here a steep increase in the assets of the company, and that is of course the production of fuel blocks that we've been doing. And you can see the wallet has dropped by about 2 billion, and these are the corporation orders that we set up for the fuel blocks, as well as some freelance jobs that we've been setting up. And for my character, the steep decline in total net worth and assets keeps going, and this is me feeding pretty much everything I earn back into Hardco, as well as all the fuel blocks I have given to the company. I guess there's a little bit of a trend of evening out, so all of this was probably quite inflated by the amount of fuel blocks I had. The company itself is now up to 16 members, which is quite a big jump since the last episode. We've added 5 new characters with Gahun, Andromeda Blue, Cayman, and 9972-PI1 and 9972-PI2, which are 2 alts. But I can feel that the corporation is starting to become a bit more alive with the Discord channel. There's a little bit of things going on, a little bit in Corp chat. So we are heading in the right direction. Since last week, we had these weekly goals. We wanted to finish the big order, get going with recruitment, investigate some areas for expansion of the company into different empire spaces. And part of that would be to set up freelance projects for ice materials and see if we can make some contacts with people. The fuel block goal is still not finished. We're still having a bit of issue with the oxygen fuel blocks. But I personally would try and make a big effort to see if I can finish this off. The recruitment, on the other hand, has been going really well. I have set up a proper ad, and I have been active in the recruitment channel, and that has resulted in a few new members. And if we keep up at this rate of maybe 4 or 5 people every week, and then maybe hitting 40, 50 characters, would probably be a nice level. So we have been doing quite a bit of investigation for our expansion, and this has mainly been focused on Gallente space, and that is because the oxygen fuel blocks have been a problem, and Gallente space is oxygen isotopes. I did set up a few freelance projects in some of these areas, and they were quite easily fulfilled, so there seems to be a desire to sell stuff in these areas. I've done a little bit of tentative contact with a few people, but nothing major just yet. So as I mentioned, the big order that we've been working on for quite a while is still not finished. Luckily, it's not a timed one. It's when we're finished with it, we deliver it. And it's still the oxygen. I made some headway into it. It's a bit hard for our newer members to do anything with oxygen because they don't make that much money. But I'm going to make a big push this week and see if I can make a big dent into the oxygen fuel blocks. There is, however, another order where our members can do quite a bit. And that is a helium fuel block order, which is, of course, the helium isotope that we have in our space. Got a big order for 50,000. So this is an order where our members can easily make quite a bit. So far, our stockpiles are about 14,000. So we have about 36,000 helium blocks to go. And I personally won't do many of these because I will be focusing on the oxygen. But hopefully our members are getting a bit settled in so they can start chugging away at this. I don't think we'll be finished until next week with this one. We'll have to see. So if we could finish these orders, once we sell them, we would get 2.8 billion back to the company, which would be amazing. Of course, it's not 2.8 billion profits, but this would still be money that we can invest back into more fuel block projects. And I might even be able to start paying a little bit back to the investors. Probably not huge sums, but just a little something to show that we haven't forgotten about them. So these were the stockpiles last week. So this is right before we had a sale. And then we've slowly been chugging away, especially at the helium and the oxygen isotope. But we're slowly creeping back up. So the planned expansion that we've been doing, at the core of it, we're trying to make it so that the jump fighters will have the least amount of jumps. Because each jump costs fuel, which we can produce ourselves because we do ice mining. But if we can keep the time and investment needed, it'll be a huge boon for the company. When we flew around in Gallente, we realized that we're quite lucky the way we're set up, that we have access to null security. And that is a bit our golden goose. That ice belt out in nullsec will be our lifeblood, because we have access to so many of the ice materials there. Whereas in highsec, you usually only get the isotope and you get a little bit of the other ones. But with the nullsec belt, we can really produce a ton of fuel blocks. But what we decided to do is, because the low-sec areas are very contested and they're usually not very friendly, we've had to pivot into doing high-sec operations. And that will still be of value to us because of we can get the different faction isotopes, which are a huge part of the total cost of a fuel block. In the beginning, we will try and set up either just freelance jobs in certain areas to collect compressed ice and then refine it so we get the isotopes and then transport that back. But if people are up for it, we could also set up to actually have miners in the areas. But it will be high-sec, and high-sec ice belts are quite contested. They're usually only up for 1 or 2 hours and then they're gone. So it's not impossible, but it is a bit tricky. So the first area we looked at is actually my old stomping grounds up in Sinclair Zone. And what we have identified is this system, Bascarin, which is a low security system. And the reason we want a low security system is we need that for the jump freighters to jump in, because they can't jump to high security. They can jump from high security, but not to it. And of course, around Bascarin, we have 3 ice belts in Misneden, Chelian, and Brapelli. So there will be mining going on in this area in a relatively confined space in terms of jumps. There is a station with quite good refining here in Fricourt. So to begin with, we will be setting up offices here and have our freelance projects. We'll collect these, transport them to Fricourt, and then we'll do a few more jumps and we will jump back into domain with the jump freighters. And as I said, at some point we might have people on the ground here. We might go there ourselves and do some mining and chat with the locals. I have set up a jump clone, and we have an office here in this system now as well. So this is our first point of expansion. We have been looking a bit at Minmatar as well, but we haven't done anything concrete there just yet. The first order of business is Gallente space. And then finally, I finished the skills for the Torrent. So I now have my deep space transport. And it's quite an upgrade in terms of capacity compared to the Squall. Because now you have the fleet hangar with 31k, and you have the infrastructure hull with 90k, and the just basic hull, I don't know what it's called. And that totals to about 124,000, which is almost 25,000 fuel blocks, which is huge. So the Torrent I was given had the lovely name of the Edmund Fitzgerald Mark III, which I will be keeping. So this is the fit that the Edmund Fitzgerald came with. A Dreadgoristus cloaking device, compact interdiction nullifier, restrained micro warp drive, and a quite fun thing I haven't tried, the medium micro jump drive. I can't actually put it online just yet, but overall I'm quite happy with the fit, and it'll be, I have started flying it a bit and it feels quite nice, handles quite well. It's a bit like the Squall. Maybe I should do some upgrades to the fit, I'm no expert, but for now it absolutely suits my purpose as a sort of a high-sec hauler. So I did do a bit of training for the jump drive, then I couldn't use it, but I'm also trying to pump up my drone damage a tiny bit, because some of the rats out in the ice belt are still a bit too tough for me. I've also considered, since I do have a Vexor sitting in my hangar that I haven't used in a while, I'm thinking of taking that out maybe, because it should have decent drone damage, because I have focused so much on drones. Which could mean that I could perhaps take my retriever out instead of the Procure and do a retriever and a Vexor and just swap whenever the rats appear in belt. But I'm going to have to look into it a bit. Other than that, it's really the reprocessing and the advanced broker relations that I am interested in doing. There's also, of course, the ice reprocessing final one, but it's a 21-day. At some point, of course, I'll finish it, but it's not a huge rush, I feel. Then we also, in our Discord, we had a little bit of discussion going. And one of our members, Professor Arman, began to create some skins for us, hardcore skins for some of the ships, which I thought was really cool. I didn't actually know that this existed in this way. So he has been sitting doing, I guess, some of the more popular ships that we would be using. And I think they look super cool, and can't wait to see some of our members flying around in these. I have a suspicion that you guys could buy it even if you're not in the corporation as well. I don't know it. Send an email to Professor Arman if you're interested, and I think he'd be happy to sell them to you. For me personally, they're still a bit too expensive because I tend to fly with a pretty light wallet since I have everything invested into trade. But at some point I'll be getting one of them. I have had a bit more time this week, and that has not only seen me being able to mine some ice, but I've also started taking on the role of corporation leader a bit more. I've done tons of corporation admin, setting up a welcome email, the recruitment ad. I've begun setting up titles. So we now have 2 titles. That would be the refiner and the mining foreman. We've also done a bit of expansion in the Discord, setting up some new info channels, a forum for the skins, and things like that. I've also set up a little bit with the corporation hangars where people can now donate, and then have a item hangar where they can request things from. So I'm doing all these little admin things and trying to set things up and learning how it works. We have also begun discussing setting up the corporation mining operations. And that will be a weekly recurring thing. And right now we are deciding which day would be suited best for the US members and the EU members. We're currently voting on that. And then we'll set up one time for the US and one time for the EU. I have a feeling it will be on the same day, so it'll be a very long session because there is a bit of overlap between the US and EU. But my intention is to have a mining foreman from each of these time zones that can help me to just make sure the fleet is up and helping the new people in, just taking charge a tiny bit. So say that the mining ops would be on Fridays. It would be the entire Friday evening, essentially, if both times ended up there. So for the next week, again, I have the goal of finishing the fuel block order. And I'm going to sacrifice some of my trading and see if I can really start working on the oxygen ones. I will continue the recruitment and see if I can do maybe 4 or 5 new people for next week. And of course, we want to set up the mining ops. Or at least we want to decide which day and have 2 mining foremen. And I can feel that my job is more and more becoming the leader and administrator of things. I am trying to read up on these subjects because I am fairly new to this. So I can feel I am slipping into that role more and more, and I would likely have less and less time to play the game myself. I am totally cool with that. I will try and set up as good of an environment I can for the members. I will also be doing a sort of a beginner's guide to making fuel blocks. I will make a video. Some of the new recruits we've had, they have had a little bit of difficulty how to do this, and there's only so much you can explain over the corporation chat. So I will be doing it sort of how I felt when I was learning this myself. I will go through, because I felt there was often many small things that the guides missed, like how do you transport a command center? How do you place a command center? And things like that. That was tricky. So I'm going to try and do a really super beginner's basics of how to make fuel blocks. I've started doing a bit of outline. I have no idea how long it will take me to finish this. Maybe three weeks, 4 weeks, maybe next week. I don't know, but it will be published on YouTube. It's intended for the new Artcom members, but I have a feeling other beginners might want this information as well. I want to thank you guys again. I think we're above 350 subscribers. And we're quite a few months into this and people are still watching, which is really cool. I'm still getting emails, I'm still having people reach out, and I'm still having tons of fun with this. So again, thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.